And here we are, and we got more money in the bank, a lot more money in the bank, and plus another £300,000 for property. So praise God. And then just the other thing to say, I mentioned just a moment ago, the New Life Advocacy Ministry, that we just launched that, so Gemma started doing that, and this is something that is, I hope, going to impact our church and be an asset, not only in helping people in terms of their money and things like that, and various other advocacy needs, but also helping connect you to people around you more effectively for the sake of the gospel. And I haven't got time to go into the details of that now, but it's not just about helping one or two people with their money, it's actually a gospel ministry. So we'll look at that again at another time, but it'd be great for us to be praying for Jeremy a bit later during the prayer ministry session. Okay, so if you turn to Judges then, chapters 13, 14 and 15, I'm just going to refer to particular verses, okay? But this is the story of Samson. Okay, great story in the Bible. Most of us will have heard something about it. Some of us don't really know anything about it. Okay, but you will know about it by the time we finish. Let me just first quickly pray. Father, help me again to communicate effectively now for your honour and your glory. Amen. So, for anyone that doesn't know, Samson, he was a deliverer of Israel. Okay? Now, all you need to know at the moment about Samson is the time that he lived. Okay? It was like this. Imagine for a moment that there's been for some time between this country and this, I don't know, it could be any other country, like tension building. Right? Imagine this was the situation for Samson. Tension has been building until, and this country is weakening all the time. Okay? But this tension that's been built with this other country is like a superpower. And in your lifetime, imagine they come and they invade. So that your life now, when you look out, there are tanks on the street. There are, you hear every single day about atrocities, terrible atrocities happening. People being killed. That every time there's any kind of resistance, the resistance is just, people just disappear, just gone. Okay? That was the situation that Samson was born into. Now they were, Israel at the time, they'd been in this situation for 40 years. Now imagine that, some of you have got young children. Imagine that happened now, so your children grow up, they're like 38 years old, all they've ever known is tanks and that in the street, and these terrible things happening. That's just, they have no memory of freedom like what we enjoy. That was Samson's situation, okay, back then. Terrible atrocities happening. And what would happen, before that 40 years of invasion, before that, Israel was continually being invaded by different people, and God would send deliverers and deliver them. Okay, Samson is God's deliverer. Okay, this boy has been born. And so let's just delve into it a little bit. Chapter 13, verse 7. He said to me, "You will conceive," this is speaking to Samson's mum, "you will conceive and give birth to a son. Therefore do not drink wine or beer, and do not eat anything unclean, because the boy will be a Nazarite to God from birth until the day of his death." So this woman, she's going to have a child, and he is to be a Nazarite. A Nazarite was a Jewish boy or man who took a particular vow, where he would be devoted to God for the time of the vow. And that devotion, that particular devotion, was expressed in certain ways. Number one, they were never to cut their hair during the period of the vow. They couldn't cut their hair. They would let the locks of their hair grow. And they wouldn't, during that time, they wouldn't eat anything, any fruit of the vine, or drink any wine or anything like that. So, and they wouldn't trim their beard. And there are various other things that were part of the vow of the Nazarite, which was which was a kind of a sign that this is a person who's devoted to the Lord. And a person may take that vow for 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever. But Samson, his mum, was to live as a Nazirite before he was born. And when he was born, he was to be a Nazirite all his life. This was a son, a man set apart for God. That's the first thing. The second thing is Samson was a man of faith. In other words, we're going to see him in heaven. Now, how do I know that? Because he's listed in Hebrews chapter 11 as one of the great men of faith. Now, there are other people like Esau that aren't. Esau, I don't expect to see him in heaven. But Samson, we will likely, or we'll certainly see him in heaven, as long as we're there. I trust we will be. And so this is a man of God. We can expect to see him in heaven. But the reason why we're looking at Samson today is because we're going to see a man of God, incredibly gifted by God, but his life was blighted by acts of foolishness that cost him. Okay? And so the point is, we can be, and so he's a kind of an extreme example of what we can all be, to a lesser degree. But that he didn't have to be that way. And so we're just going to have, a sort of buckle up tour through the life of Samson. Chapter 14, verses 1 and 2. Samson went down to Timnah and saw a young Philistine woman there. He went back and told his father and his mother, I have seen a young Philistine woman in Timnah. Now get her for me as a wife. Okay? Now that tells you something about the kind of person Samson is. He's never talked to the woman. He's seen this woman and his heart is like pounding. He's like, I've got to have that woman. And he goes back, he's like, get her for me as a wife. Here's the thing, she's a Philistine. You imagine what that's like for a Jew. You've got these invaders, the enemy, and your child wants to marry one of their daughters. That's what's happening here. It's like so his parents, they try and talk him out of it, but no, the heart wants what the heart wants. He won't have it any other way. And so he ends up married. They arrange the marriage. That's the first thing. That's an act of foolishness. Verses 5 and 6, chapter 14, verses 5 and 6. Samson, so the arrangements, things are progressing with the marriage. Hasn't happened yet. Samson went down to Timnah with his father and mother and came to the vineyards of Timnah. Suddenly, a young lion came roaring at him. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully on him, and he tore the lion apart with his bare hands. Now, Samson had extraordinary strength. This was God's particular spiritual gift to him. He gave him extraordinary strength and power. He tears this lion apart on the way to Timnah and leaves it dead, as it were, in the street. Now, in the meantime, what happens is, so Samson's getting married, remember, and his wife-to-be says, look, she's obviously got lots of people attending the marriage, and he's got hardly anyone. She says, look, I've got 30 men who can come and kind of sit on your side. That's basically what's happening on the wedding day. Well, Samson doesn't really like this idea, obviously, because it's not even his family or whatever, but especially since he has to buy them their suits. And he's like, I don't want to do all that. So he comes up with an idea. He says to these men, I'll tell you what, if you can solve this riddle, I'll give you your suits. Otherwise, you've got to give me blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so he gives them this riddle. Now, the riddle is this. That lion that he killed, he's noticed subsequently that bees have got their, nest in there. What do you call it? Hive. That's the one, thank you. They've got a hive in the carcass of the lion. And one day, Samson goes and he eats some of the honey out of the carcass of the lion, which is a pretty awful thing to do, especially since he's meant to be a Nazirite. You're not meant to touch a dead carcass even, let alone eat the honey out of them. But that's what he does. Anyway, so he's got this in his memory. He sees these guys and says, I'll give you this riddle. If you can solve the riddle, I'll give you your seats. Out of the eater came some, out of the, Out of the strong came
Out
something to eat, out of the strong came something sweet. It's like, what am I talking about? And they can't guess it. And so the groomsmen, they go to his wife to be, and they say, look, just get it out of him what the answer is. And she's like, no. But they keep on. And in the end, she goes to Sam. She said, yeah, you can imagine her. She grinds him down. If you really love me, you tell me. You're making me look like a fool. In the end, he tells her. She tells them. And so he's got to then go and buy them all these suits. She's like, oh. Samson is fuming. And so he decides to take revenge. And basically kills 30 of their 30 of the enemy's people, takes their suits and gives them to these groomsmen. He doesn't go and buy them, he kills a lot of people and gives them the suits. Now this is a man of God. Okay? Now, like I say, we are going to see Samson. He's going to be there. And he's done these crazy things. Anyway, he's fuming, everything's been spoiled. He's late to the wedding. He goes back and he says, to be married. And the father says, where was she? I've given her to another man. So this woman he was going to marry, now he's not even going to marry her. But he's like fuming. So you know what he does? Catches some foxes. Sets their tails on fire, probably ties something to them, sets them on fire, and lets them run free in the barley fields and the wheat fields of the Philistines. In other words, all their crops destroyed. Now you can see, Samson's not winning favour. This is the enemy. He's upsetting, and all the people of Israel have been absolutely powerless, and there's this guy just making trouble. And so, that's in chapter 15, verses 4. Let me just have a... And let me read. So then, after this event, it says this is chapter 15, verse 11. Then 3,000 men of Judah went to the cave of the rock of Etam. And they asked Samson, don't you realise that the Philistines rule us? What are you doing? What have you done to us? He says, I've done to them what they did to me, he answered. He don't care. They said to him, we've come to tie you up and hand you over to the Philistines. 3,000 come to tie him up and hand him over to the Philistines. Then Samson told them, swear to me that you yourselves won't kill me. And so they say no. So he agrees to be, he realises what he's done. He's handed over to the Philistines. And this is his defeat. This is this great man of God. They pluck out his eyes, so he's blind. And they cut off his hair, because the secret of his strength's been revealed. Anyway, so he's lost his strength, okay? And he starts grinding wheat as a slave for the Philistines in Gaza. Now in Gaza, it was where the Philistines had their kind of headquarters. It was the centre of operations. And, they were kind of partying and revelling over how their God has defeated the Israelite God. And Samson, who's meant to be some significant person, has been reduced to a blind guy who's got, no strength anymore and is just their slave. And in order to humiliate him, they decide to have him brought out to put him on show as part of their kind of festivities, I guess. But the Bible tells us his hair started to grow back. And that his hair was the sign of his strength. Okay, don't ask me what exactly this is about, but that's what the Bible tells us. And so Samson asks to be placed, he wants to know where between the two main pillars so that he can work out where he is, that's what he says. And as he stands there before all these crowds, all these Philistines, all the most important people are gathered there, he pushes the pillars of the temple down, the whole thing comes crashing down, destroys all the kind of people of power, all dead. It's like Houses Park getting blown up with everyone in there. And on that day, he himself dies in the process, but he delivers Israel from the hand of their enemies. He delivers Israel from the hand of the oppressor. Those that have enslaved them have now been defeated. Now, I wanted to share that with us because as believers, we can be like Samson. Now, most of us aren't. We don't have the extremity of gifting that he had. Incredible, extraordinary gift. On one occasion, he killed 1,000 men with a donkey jawbone. I missed that one out. But he was an incredibly gifted person. He was a man of God, set aside, sanctified. That's what the Nazarite thing was. Set aside by God for a purpose. And he achieved something great. He achieved the deliverance of his people. But he made some really foolish mistakes along the way. And there are some things that we can learn from that. The first thing is that, when Samson messed up the way that he did, when his hair started growing back, that was like his strength being restored. And God restores even when we mess up. Okay? He's in the business of restoring people. And that's what, wherever we're at right now, whatever our past has been, or whatever, if we messed up or not being walking with the Lord as we should, here's the thing. God wants to restore us in the relationship that he's called us to and to the things that he's called us to. Not only that, though, it's important to recognise in the story of Samson that what we see is even though God forgives and restores, that doesn't mean we don't have to pay for the consequences of our sin. Samson, when God forgave him, he didn't suddenly find himself set free and his hair, he died in that place of slavery. Okay, so there are consequences. It's important to not confuse forgiveness that God gives with no consequences. God forgives us, but there are consequences. Sin costs, and that's what Samson found. Another lesson to learn from Samson is this. This is Samson's weakness. Okay, the passions of his heart. If we do not master the passions of our heart, the passions of our heart will master us. And they will lead us like a slave. And we will pay a price. That's why it says in Proverbs, God above all things. When the Bible says above all things, you think of all the things the Bible says. Take all of that, above all of that. You know what it says? Guard your heart. Master your passions. And now, I'm going to round off with this, really. One of the verses we've looked at a little bit already is Titus chapter 2. And what it says there is, the grace of God has been... Titus chapter 2 tells us the grace of God has been revealed, and it teaches us to say no to ungodliness. Now here's the really important bit. Once I find the verse. For the grace of God has appeared, bringing salvation for all people, instructing us to say, or teaching us to say no to ungodliness, and look what it says, worldly lusts or passions. Here's the thing that we must all get. We can overcome those temptations to sin. We can. Now the reason why that is so important, it's important for me to know it and for you to know it, for myself and you for yourself, but not just that, for other people that will be struggling with sin that is going to cost them and us. Here's the thing, what we have to tell ourselves is, this is me, I can improve in other areas, but I just can't improve in this area. I'm stuck. This is just me. This is the way that I am. And that's the way that I'll continue to be. The grace of God that brings salvation to all people has appeared and teaches us to say no. And the most important thing that we need to do is simply this: believe the word of God. And stop believing that the way that we are is the way that we are. If you believe that, if you don't believe God and you believe that, you're believing a lie of the devil. It's as simple as that. And God wants you to be an overcomer. Because Samson brought about a great deliverance in the giving of his own life, didn't he? Which reminds us, doesn't it, of another who has brought about a great deliverance. You see, for Samson, the Philistines were the enslavers. Christ has delivered us by giving his life from not the Philistines, but from the power of sin and death and the powers of darkness. We've been delivered from their power so that we don't have to be like Samson. So we need to believe this, brothers and sisters, all of us. If you think of a chain, how strong, you have a steel chain, how strong is the chain? Well, often people say it's as strong as the weakest link, right? So when you think about our church, you can apply that to the church. We are as strong, as it were, as our weakest link or weakest links. And so we want every single member to be strong in the Lord. And we do that. How? By trusting in him. How does that help? But we're trusting to believe in his word that we can overcome those temptations. And believe in that, what that does is this: it means we continue to battle against them and don't give up. And as we battle against them, in that battle, God's Spirit is at work. Because he wants us to overcome. So, brothers and sisters, whether it's big things in your life or small things in your life, there are things about each one of us perhaps where maybe we've battled with and we can start to just think, well, this is just me. Say, no, no way. I am going to be a victor because the grace of God has appeared so that I can say no to what